You know and love David Oyelowo. He has been in so many incredible movies like Selma, like all these great movies. He's now in Newborn. I mean, this movie, talk about the process of getting this movie made because it has been years in the making to finally coming out in theaters now.
Yeah, this is one of those long gestating films that went through all sorts of permutations to get to where we are now. But the great thing for both myself and Nate Parker, who wrote and directed it, is this is the film we set out to make. And we did not anticipate that it would be a film that we would also be distributing ourselves. But that's just incredibly empowering that from idea to audience we're in the driving seat of this one. And like I say, that's a very exciting thing.
What do people need to know? What is kind of the premise of this story for people who haven't seen the trailer yet, who are going to kind of go into it blind? But what do they need to know about this story?
Well, I play Chris Newborn, who's been in solitary confinement for 7 years. And at the beginning of the film, he comes out and we see him reconnecting with his wife and son. And it's basically about him trying to do that whilst dealing with the effects of solitary confinement, which is, emotionally and primarily psychologically incredibly detrimental, incredibly difficult because of the paranoia and the distrust he feels, which is where the psychological thriller component kicks in.
The last time we talked was for an Apple TV show called Government Cheese. Love that show. So I recommend that if you haven't seen it, but kind of similar, obviously different kind of tone to that show. That one's more comedy, more dark comedy, but coming out of confinement, coming back to his family. Did you think about this movie while you were filming that since that was filmed later before, after Newborn?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's nothing of newborn that overlaps with government cheese, which is as it should be, and that's what I look for in characters. I'm always looking for completely different and new worlds and new stories and new characters to participate in. But I'm glad to say there's no real overlap between those two. But I guess the only overlap is me really, and I feel very privileged that I got to do both.
Such great work on those parts. And like you said, Nate Parker, just terrific, terrific work here. Director, writer, producer. With he did Birth of a Nation, then he did American Skin, and now this is kind of his next one. He's very particular, it seems, about choosing his projects, very important topics. Talk about working with him on this collaboration, like you said, financing the film yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we first met 17 years ago doing a film called Red Tails. And, we had the huge privilege of sitting at the feet of George Lucas on that film, who I think in many ways is the godfather of betting on yourself, as an independent filmmaker. It sounds weird saying that about George Lucas, but, between THX and American Graffiti and the fact that no one wanted to make Star Wars. And as I say, he bet on himself and he just really mentored us after we had that experience with him. And so he's a huge inspiration for both Nate and I as we are building, the kind of stories we want to tell, but also how we want to get it out to the audience, self-distributing Newborn, having a streaming platform of our own called Mansa as well. And so yeah, but I feel very privileged to be a friend to Nate, but also a creative collaborator because I do think he has a real genius brain.
It's talk about going through that process to put yourself in this character's shoes because we see the different timelines. We see him in the present, but then we see all the flashbacks, all the things going in his mind where he cannot stop thinking about this time that he spent in prison. Talk about putting yourself in his shoes for this role, a very difficult role to play.
Yeah, I very much needed to lean on folks who had actually experienced this because thankfully for me, it's very much outside of my experience. I could relate to being a father, being a brother, being a husband. Those are all things that I am. But being anywhere near being incarcerated, let alone solitary confinement, is very much outside of my experience. And so, my primary source of information there was a gentleman named Richard Rosario who had endured 20 years of incarceration for a crime he didn't commit. Seven of those were in solitary confinement. And so it's a very specific way it affects everyone in a different way, but there are commonalities, reading accounts of other people who had been in solitary confinement, but also just having someone to tether myself to in terms of specificity. Richard was really and generously the guy who really helped me with that.
I'd love to hear that connection that you shared with him and talk about this direction with Nate Parker. And where did you guys come to the realization, okay, no one's going to help us with this. We're going to work ourselves to make sure this comes out to an audience nationwide with AMC theaters. But when did you guys have that realization after filming? Because it's been a few years since you guys filmed it, but when did that kick into play that, okay, this is the time now that we have to get this movie out?
We actually did have distributors who wanted to take on the film, but the terms were just not acceptable to us, especially as we'd worked so hard to get the film made. The dirty secret about our business is that artists slave away to make a movie, raise the money, get it done, get it in post, finish it, get to a festival, sell it, and then someone comes along and they're last money in, first money out. The chances of you seeing any remuneration for your work is very, very minimal, and they own it, sometimes in perpetuity if it's on certain streamers. That just doesn't feel right. And I think even though this film took a longer time to come to fruition, that's why the distribution models that exist felt like they were just unacceptable. It was just like, how can we work this hard to get this far and then hand it over for peanuts? And we're supposed to just be grateful that the film got distributed? No. And so, AMC, who are the biggest exhibitor in the world, also are very frustrated at the moment with how movies have these very short windows. There's not enough independent film happening, and it's all being curated and funneled through a studio mindset, which does not share much with the audience's appetite. And so, after a while, it kind of became a no-brainer, even though there was interest from Hollywood. It just felt like this is broken and there has to be a new way and a different way to do this.
I hope filmmakers see this reason that you guys are getting this out there and hope it sparks a change in Hollywood. Seeing this movie on the big screen, though, what do you hope audiences take away from watching Newborn?
Well, I hope they do see it on the big screen. It comes out April 10th. And if they want films like this to be in movie theaters, we need that support. We need them to go see it under these circumstances so that not just us, but others, as you say, are encouraged to go this path. But like I say, I really hope they come away moved by it. Their eyes are opened, but more than anything, I hope they see themselves reflected in Chris Newborn's desire to get back to some kind of wholeness that I think all of us want, no matter what challenges we have faced.
It is a very moving movie. What's next for you? I know we're promoting Newborn. We got to know what's next in David Oyelowo's world, though.
I'm currently shooting a limited series of Treasure Island. I play Long John Silver in that, so I flew into LA to talk to you and other folks about the film. But I head back out on Sunday to go finish that up, and I'm having a great time having a parrot and a peg leg.
I love to hear that. I can't wait to see that. But right now, it's all about Newborn in theaters. Like he said, exclusively at AMC Theaters, April 10th. David, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Trevor. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.